started out in inside sales. I came there, Dean made a good impression. I said, this is where I want to work. I mean, I had interviews with a couple different places, but I knew, I said, hey, I hope this is the one.
Well, what are 3 things that somebody needs to be successful?
Number 1,
Corey Getz here today with a special guest talking about contractor financial freedom. It's a friend of mine. I have known this person since I walked into Lansing about 8.5 years ago. I think he was the first person I talked to at the time. I think he was the ops manager. And he's from South Bend, which I'm from South Bend area. So is his wife. And so we've built a connection over that. But I want to introduce today, it's the general manager of the Lansing Building Supply here in Central Indiana, here in Indianapolis. He's done a ton for me over the years, Matt Reichold.
Corey, how's it going, man? Thanks for having me. Certainly appreciate the invite and getting to spend a little time with you and kind of talk about the business and Lansing and the relationship that we've developed over the years.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Much appreciated. So yeah, I can remember the day you walked in, man. And, I think you had decided to start your own business, and it was an introduction. And I remember you had a teacher's credit union check, and so it can only mean one thing: that person might be from South Bend. And we had an instant connection, so it went from there, and the relationship developed over the years, and it's been awesome. So certainly appreciate your partnership and your friendship, and everything we've been able to accomplish over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that. It was. I started up in business, and it was an insurance claim, and they had an ITEL report that matched siding that Lansing had. Yep. And so I came in, and we, ordered the siding and everything, and it was great. And I think from there, then we started ordering deck materials from you, and all types of different things.
I could remember that job specifically. I think it was, in Speedway, right?
Yeah. We had the building commissioner of the town of Speedway in Speedway, Indiana, where the Indianapolis 500s held. The building commissioner there, there's a claim on his house to replace, I think, his siding, his roof, his deck, the whole 9.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a great project.
And that turned out beautiful.
Turned out amazing. And it ended up leading to us doing a bunch of big deck projects later.
Yep.
That was really good.
Yep.
So
yeah, that was awesome.
All starts with a little vinyl siding repair, right?
Exactly. You never know where it's going to go, right? So you've got to start somewhere, but that's the relationship part of it.
Yeah.
So what we strive for is, we sell building products. That's exactly what we're selling is exterior building products.
Yeah.
But what we're really selling is service, superior service. And that's how we kind of go to market. That's what we strive for. That's what differentiates us in the market, or at least we try to.
Yeah.
And hopefully we've kind of showcased that over the years with you. And, communication has been paramount.
Yeah.
I've been readily available. And if you need to get a hold of me, you can. It's not happening a couple days later. It's happening in the now.
Yeah.
In the building industry, things need to happen immediately. And I think we've got a direct pulse. And that all starts with our team. We've got a team that cares.
Yeah.
I think every single person on our team by name.
Oh, I know everybody on our team.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I try to keep the hardest one are the warehouse guys, but I try my best. But you're right. I mean, it's that communication, it's that support, it's that answering the phone after hours for us, texting us back when you're out of town on vacations. I mean, that service has definitely been paramount for us and really helpful throughout my business and every aspect.
Right. Yeah. I think, being service oriented and having that mentality, because I've witnessed it with you, with your homeowners on the job site. And so to stand shoulder to shoulder and work with somebody that has that same mentality means a lot, because if you guys communicate and work things out, then ultimately it's going to benefit both parties and the homeowner as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we're making a difference in the community. We're not, out repoing cars. We're making a difference.
Maybe we should switch our careers. Yeah. Maybe a little easier.
But it feels good. I mean, when you can see the before and you're making a house a home, and you partner together to do that, and it feels local. It feels like you're doing something great in the community. Yeah. And to work with a local business like yourself, who started from the ground up and built it to where it is, that means a lot to partner with somebody and build that up.
Yeah. And without your guys' partnership, I would not have been able to grow over the years. I've had many people help me over the years, but the way that Lansing has helped me, you, Colby, Dean, Heather, all the guys in there, Aaron, Zach, Mark, Steve, everybody in the warehouse, everybody on your team
For sure.
is really focused on helping us. And what that's done for me over the years to help me grow is it helps me see it from a different perspective, which is sometimes the hardest challenge for me as a contractor. I grew up doing this, I was doing the work, and then you become a business owner. And I went to business school, so I have a business degree.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't matter. When it comes down to construction, whether it's with the products or the way they're offered or different details, I get a ton of information from you guys, and you guys help me learn so much about what I do in my business, because constantly things are changing. I can't just be like, when I started installing siding when I was 15 with my buddy's dad, I'm 38 now.
Mm-hmm.
If I still installed it the same way, that would be wrong.
Right.
It'd be installed improperly.
Right.
And the products change
Rapidly.
so much.
Rapidly.
I remember during COVID, it was like, I think we talked every day.
Oh, yeah. And we talk through things because there's different challenges. And I think now things are changing more rapidly than any previous time. I'm 17 years in the business, so you would think that there isn't a lot that you haven't seen, but that's just not the case.
Yeah.
And so you've got to adapt, you've got to learn, you've got to communicate. And those things are key to success. If you don't, and you're not willing to learn continually, if you're not willing to embrace those challenges and communicate with your partner, then you're gonna fall behind. You're not gonna keep up with what the industry needs.
Yeah.
So that's crucial.
Yeah. So let's take it back a step. How did you end up at Lansing?
Sure.
Why Lansing? You've been here 17 years, right?
Right.
And
Yep.
so it's like you stuck with the same company.
Correct.
How did you get here, and why have you stayed?
Right. So ultimately, my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, is the one who brought me to Indianapolis. I was familiar with the area. My grandparents had a home in Carmel before Carmel was what it is now.
Yeah.
I can remember when there was just a Wendy's and a Target over off of 31, and now it's exploded to what it is now.
Yeah.
But
They rebuilt the whole McDonald's since then.
That's right.
They built a McDonald's and rebuilt it.
That's exactly right. So I came to Indianapolis, and I was obviously trying to get a job. I didn't have a job when I moved here.
Yeah.
And so I was entertaining a couple different places. And when I walked into Lansing, just the friendliness. Dean was the branch manager at the time. Yeah. And
Dean Green, great guy. Another person here at Lansing. I don't think I mentioned it. Dean is amazing. Dean is just so much knowledge, so helpful. I remember when I walked in the door, still, I dealt with you most of the time, but it was like Dean was always there to back it up.
And that's the thing. We're so cross-trained, and we help each other. And there's, synergy, I guess you would say, to where we kind of back each other up when we work as a team.
Yeah.
And Dean has over 25 years of experience. So tons of experience. Heather has even, almost the same.
Yeah.
So there's a ton of experience. I think the least tenured associate that we have is coming up on 1 year. Yeah. And so you get to know everybody by name. And then that relationship is personal. The more personal that relationship can be, the better service you're going to get, the better, we're going to perform. We're going to get to understand your business. Yep. So you're truly getting a customized personal service because our team learns how you guys operate. You mentioned how you learned and took a different perspective on how we operate. And I really appreciate that because you don't find that everywhere.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have to learn how you operate and learn your team. And, when you can do that and you can focus on, okay, this is how this company works and this is how this person communicates, then we can really go to task and get some things done.
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat. Yeah.
No, it's been great. I agree with you. And it's like, and I think the challenge you guys have sometimes is contractors like me, we're constantly changing our business. So then if you don't have that intimate relationship and know them well, then the business changes and you're not aware, but you guys do such a good job. Like, I think a lot of times if I lose an employee or we bring a new employee on, you guys are one of the first people I tell.
Yeah. Well, you bring them in to introduce, which is crucial. I might come to your guys' office. but you guys are always out on job sites and are busy running around. So, you know, it's for you to take the time out to bring your team to introduce them to our team. That just speaks volumes. So that's the kind of relationship that's huge. But Lansing Building Products, you know, what kept me here for 17 years is I started out in inside sales. I came there, Dean made a good impression. I said, this is where I want to work. I mean, I had interviews with a couple different places, but I said, hey, I hope this is the one. And sure enough, got a call back. It was during a massive hailstorm in 2006.
I remember that. I came up from Katrina for that. I was working in Katrina. I came up in 06. April 14th was the date of that hailstorm.
Yeah. So I started in the fall of 06, which fall is our busy season here, as you know, in Indiana.
Yeah.
It's peak season. It was a hailstorm. I was drinking from a fire hose, literally.
Yeah,
but you're trying to absorb everything you can, and you learn, and you get to know the people, and that's the rewarding part of it. Yeah. You know, the product knowledge comes. But you know, Lansing's had a mission statement, or has a mission statement, and it is to provide superior service to professional contractors while maintaining the highest ethical standards. And we accomplish that through respect, service, and excellence. And I've never had a job before that had a mission statement where I felt that the company actually truly stood behind it. Yeah. And this felt different. This felt like they did. They treat their associates the right way. You know, the reason, if you ask Hunter Lansing, the reason why we exist is to make a positive impact in people's lives. And that starts with our associates. And that's why that relationship is so personal. And then secondly, it's to make a positive impact, you know, with our partners and in the community. You know, we've got things set up like the Lansing Foundation, where we're given the opportunity to dig in and be part of the community and give back. So just really cool stuff, some family values that you just don't find everywhere.
Yeah.
And then opportunity, right? So juxtaposed to 2006, you go to 2008, and there was an economic downturn. And so very quickly, I saw both sides of the
business. Yeah, business. He saw an upturn, he saw a giant downturn.
Exactly. And that was rough. Yeah. But you embrace those challenges and you kind of navigate through them. As you go, you kind of just deal with it as it comes. Yeah. You plan as best you can, but you've got to be able to react and adapt and communicate. I mean, you have to know, like, hey, if your business partners are down for whatever reason, you know, how can you partner with them to pick that up? Or, hey, we know this is going to happen for a few years where it might be a downturn, but it's going to get better. It's going to pick up. That's just the economy, right?
Yeah.
So you have to navigate that together, shoulder to shoulder.
Yep.
So I just really felt like the company as a whole, from a service standpoint and from a value standpoint, kind of puts their money where their mouth is. And hopefully, you know, our team has showcased that over the years. I really hope that they do. Yeah. So I'm proud of them and proud of the relationship that we've built. And from experience in 17 years, I know that those personal relationships last. I've had customers that have worked for multiple companies, and, you know, the relationship doesn't follow the company, it follows that person.
Yeah.
You know, you don't burn bridges, you build those relationships, and they're meant to last.
Yep.
You know, the partnerships turn into friendships.
Yeah.
And that's the awesome, rewarding thing about this career.
Yeah. And, you know, I see that like all throughout Lansing, you know, and I don't know if I've ever personally met Hunter Lansing, but man, I hear his name all the time, you know, whether it's from you or when Colby was here, Colby always was talking about him.
Yeah.
And shout out to Colby Beckman, great guy.
Colby's great.
Colby's amazing. And, but I hear that, you know, where it's like, you know, I see it from the top at Lansing where it's like, you know, they're always talking about Hunter Lansing. Everybody is. And then you see those relationships that he's built with the employees all the way down to the point where it's like you then build those relationships with us as contractors. And it does it. You know, I remember when I early started up, and I think Colby had just taken over the branch. I was maybe like a 2-person show, maybe 3. And he invited me to the Lansing Christmas party that year. It was at the bowling alley.
I remember you showed up.
Yeah. And I loved it. I was so happy. I was like, man, I get to participate. And you guys made me feel so at home. And so that's always great. It's so cool to see. It's like, well, that's why you're staying. Well, that's why I'm still here buying too. You know?
Exactly.
And so that's great. Do you have any notable success stories you'd like to share, either around UHQ or just Lansing or your team here? Anything you'd like to, any stories you remember?
Yeah, I mean, sure.
I know we've got a ton of stories.
yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, just the growth, but, I can think back to our old office on the south side, and we had 20,000 square feet of warehouse space, and the ceilings were only 20 feet tall.
Yeah. And how much do you have now here?
Now we've got approximately 40,000.
Yeah.
And our ceilings are much taller. We weren't selling any James Hardie at the time. We were vinyl siding, windows and doors, and gutter largely. And frankly, we didn't have the space or the capacity to bring in any other products.
Yeah.
And we were kind of working with what we had. But those relationships were built. Dean came in 2003 and started that branch and did a fantastic job of developing relationships and partnerships. But then when it was time to move, we were able to move to a great location up here in Carmel. Yeah. And we moved to a state-of-the-art facility that's really been a springboard for us. And we've been able to add associates throughout the years. We've hired and retained outstanding talent.
Yeah.
And that's probably, if you're going to measure success, I think being able to hire and retain talented associates, that speaks volumes. Yeah. That's your team. You depend on them. I want our team to be able to handle any task that you could call up and talk to anybody, and it's going to get handled. Yeah. If I'm at an appointment and I can't get to it in an hour or 2 hours, of course I'm going to call you back. But if there's a sense of urgency, then I will want you to be able to call in and have it handled. And I trust them. Yeah. And I think that's a measure of success, is having a team that you truly trust, and they're bought in, and you can see it from the tenure of the associates. Yeah. It's not a revolving door.
Yeah, I don't hear any of your employees ever talking about wanting to leave. They're always really happy here. I think the other thing that you guys do that I don't necessarily see you guys do it, but I hear a lot about it, is you guys do a lot of training.
We do. Training's crucial. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to hire talented people, you better educate them and provide them the proper training, and set the expectation of what's necessary to do their job. You don't want somebody to flounder. I mean, imagine your first day on the job and you came into a place and, it was making sandwiches and somebody didn't grab you and tell you, hey, here's how you do it properly. And you're just kind of just making it up as you go.
Yeah.
You're not going to be very happy with that. It's just not a very good experience. And, in order to have growth opportunities, you have to provide the proper training for those associates, because it's not just a job. You want career-oriented people. And the only way you're going to create opportunity is to help them get better. And the only way you can do that is through training.
Yep. 100%. 100%. Well, I think you guys have done a great job at it. We're going to kind of shift a little more towards the Hardie board side of things now. What are some common challenges that you see contractors getting into when they're dealing with Hardie board or James Hardie siding, fiber cement?
Sure, absolutely. So Hardie has been a more in-demand product from homeowners. Homeowners are asking for it by name, right?
Yeah.
James Hardie does a ton of marketing. They've recruited Chip and Joanna, and they're advertising. I hear, on when I watch a Cubs game, they're on the commercials.
During the NFL season, it was like they were on there all the time.
Right. And it's a great product. And so more and more homeowners are asking for it.
Yeah.
But there's a labor shortage as far as being able to install it. Yeah. And so more and more, let's say, roofing companies that just purely did roofing, now they kind of want to expand their business and get into windows and doors and siding and James Hardie. But they don't have the knowledge of how to install it properly. They're not connected on how to do takeoffs, things like that. So I think that the number one challenge that I see is somebody that wants to get into installing James Hardie, but doesn't know where to begin.
Yeah.
And so,
because there's a lot. I can tell you from experience.
There's a ton.
I remember my first job, and it was a challenge. It was a real challenge.
There's a lot of stories where you hear the first one kind of goes awry. I mean, you don't want to go sideways, and that can leave a bad taste in somebody's mouth and make them not want to do it. But the important thing is to connect them with the right resources, right? Yeah. So I think, some of the things that you're doing with these videos and these training videos and showing a true process on how to get into that and set it up, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's educating, the businesses or future business people that want to get into it. They're going to need that education to have success. The other thing is, you mentioned training for associates. We also want to partner with the customers and train them.
Yeah.
So we're tightly wound with James Hardie as a partner as well.
Yeah.
It's not just me and you, it's you, me, James Hardie. We'll do trainings, we'll bring them into this conference room, and do product knowledge training and have some lunch. And then we'll go out in the warehouse with our training wall and we'll throw siding up on the wall.
Yeah.
For their sales associates, for their install crews, whoever it is. Those resources and tools are absolutely necessary to be able to understand it fully, because full well it's a great product.
Yeah.
But if it's not installed properly, oof.
Yeah, 100%. And those trainings, I've been through quite a few of those trainings over the years, and those are so helpful. I feel like I learn something every time I go to them, and it's just like, I wish I could go to one every day, but it's never getting worked.
You always pick something else up differently. I always do.
Yeah.
Or you get a reminder of something that you've forgotten. But that's a necessary thing. I mean, if you're a salesperson, you need to know the process, and your production team and your sales side need to be in step. And those processes that you've developed through experience, you are willing to share, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
At the same token, we're willing to show somebody how to do a takeoff, explain the parts and pieces, the product side of things, why this is a good product, why you can sell the value to the homeowner, and then actually provide you the resources for the installation as well.
Yeah.
James Hardie, Danny will go out to the job site and inspect the job. And if you're doing your first job, he'll be on the site. I'll be on the site to make sure that it goes smoothly. If needed, to make sure that's a success story. And then you're continually learning, and each job after that sequentially gets better and better and better. And then all of a sudden you've built it into a good, successful portion of your business.
Yep.
But it's got to start somewhere.
It's got to start somewhere. And, I think that type of support is huge. I think that's great. Not everybody offers that, and it's huge because, I remember my first job, and it was maybe not the best job ever I've installed, but I'm still proud of it, and I stand behind all my work on it. but yeah, that's huge to have people back you up. We're seeing more online training for contractors. I think that's increasing a lot.
Yep.
Have you been seeing more of that? Do you think that's beneficial for contractors?
I do. Because in peak season, they're running around on job sites, and, it's hard for them to take out 2 hours of their day. Sometimes you do have to dedicate it. But these training videos allow them to go home. It's 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night. They can watch some videos and learn little by little on their own time. And it's actually a visualization. So, reading instructions sometimes doesn't register. I know I learned by experience and actually seeing it. And, there's a ton of people out there that are exactly the same way. So training videos are clutch. Yeah. But it's just having the right videos that are going to be actually useful.
Yeah.
If you're going to watch a 20-minute video, let's pack it in. Let's make it pertinent to what it is. Yeah. And let's make it, something that you can actually learn from and apply.
Yeah.
In the field.
Absolutely. So my trick, I do a lot of online training videos. I've done a ton of online training videos over the years, different programs. And the one thing I've learned to do, because I get so much windshield time in my truck, is to play them in my truck while I drive around town. Yep. And then it allows me to kind of get through them a little bit better. Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier, one of the common challenges or mistakes that contractors make up front is not really linking all of the process together, from the sales, the pricing, to the sales and to the production. And I think that can be one of the biggest challenges that contractors have. I was actually in a Hardie training recently, and it was talked about how, if you want to sell jobs, start with production.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And so it was funny when you guys were mentioning like, hey, that first job's so important. It is, because it's a matter of getting that production set right. And so then once we get the production set up right, then it's easier to sell the next job, because usually, we usually sell a job within a mile of the Hardie job we did, as long as we're doing good marketing and things like that. And so we find our production is maybe like the most important part.
I would agree with that 100%. Your production's the one who is delivering on the promises that the salespeople are making. And not to stereotype salespeople, but they want to sell. And sometimes they have a tendency to overpromise. That production side of things is the one that's setting the expectation and doing the walk around. And if the production side is in step with the sales, then the sales are going to be able to communicate accurately to the homeowner and provide realistic expectations of what they can and can't do. And then obviously you're gonna be more profitable, because you're not finding out that, hey, our salesperson said we got to replace all this rotted soffit, or it wasn't included. There's so many things that can go wrong on a job. But you're right. It starts with the production side. And I think if the sales team can learn from the production side first of what they should set the expectation in the home, and you're also selling value then, you can learn the product knowledge all you want. But if you're not selling the value of, hey, this is our installation process is one of the best in the business. We understand that you're ponying up a lot of money and investment in your home. So, the homeowner may be convinced of the product, but they've also got to be convinced that the installation is going to be good, and they're paying a lot of money, and that's what they expect. And if you can communicate that to them and how you're going to do it, and the different processes of, hey, the dumpster is going to show up at this time, and it actually does. The material is going to show up at this time, and it actually does. And you're communicating all those steps to the homeowner right off the bat. And hey, your yard's going to be torn up, but we're going to pick up at the end of the day, and it's going to look like this. And the job's going to approximately last 5 to 8 days, business days, whatever it may be. You communicate those things clearly. You would think that would be something that is taken for granted, but it's really not a lot of the times. I don't know if you've found that in your experience. But that's how you sell value, is explain the process. It goes back to communication with the homeowner, and you say what you do what you actually say you're going to do. So, but yeah, that's huge.
It's really big. It's really big.
I mean, if you're paying $40,000, well, let's imagine your homeowner's getting a roof, gutters, windows, doors, and siding.
40, those are more like 80.
I was going to say, that could be 80 to 100K, right? And so, if that material better show up in your driveway looking like a Christmas present. And, the homeowner's perception is they are getting what they've paid for. But then it doesn't stop there. If somebody's trampling the flowers and, but who knows, leaving nails in the yard, whatever it may be. If you're communicating that, hey, we're aware of these things, this is going to happen, but we're going to take care of it, and you actually do what you say you're going to do, then that homeowner is going to have a satisfying experience. And those grassroots advertisements that you were talking about in that neighborhood, it's going to be a honey hole, because they're going to suggest it to their neighbor and say, hey, call Corey. He's awesome. He knows what he's doing. He did a fantastic job. Just look at the end result. Call this guy. And of course, neighbors are going to be curious. They're going to be walking by with their dogs at night. And it goes back to the marketing, taking a flyer, neighbors are nosy and they want to keep up with each other. So
keep it up with the Joneses.
When you have a transformation on a home, it makes an impact in that neighborhood. And, if you do what's right and you do a good job, then you're going to be successful.
100%. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that. What are some things we need to specifically see from contractors related to James Hardie siding? What is it that contractors could do? I think not just specifically per contractor, but like contractors in general that are, maybe even like you touched a little bit earlier on, there's these roofing contractors, and I see it all the time. A lot of roofing contractors without a lot of experience. Trying to get into the Hardie game. And what do we need to see more of from them, or what do we need to see more from contractors related to Hardie board siding?
It's a challenge. I mean, it's a large learning curve, right? And you can't just jump in. And if you do decide to jump in, you've got to jump in with both feet. What I kind of see, what I kind of see sometimes is, yeah, we're interested. Hardie goes out and talks to him, or I talk to him. Yeah, homeowners are asking about it, but
I'd love to do that.
I'd love to do it. Do I want to make more money? Do I want to build my business? The answer is yes, right? But it's you got to be dedicated to it.
Yeah.
And so I think opening up like a department in that business, you got to have a dedicated siding department.
Yeah.
You can get a bunch of guys that are used to selling insurance, roofing, and things like that. And, you throw them in a room and do a mass training and see what sticks. Yeah. And then sometimes you take your best salesperson and try to train them. But I think that's not always the greatest strategy.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to be left there, right? Because it's like, that guy might be a great salesman, but if you said, like you said, it's got to be a whole sales department, because if the production team isn't on the same side and not everybody's on the same page, I think it's what you mentioned earlier. It's like, if we go out there and overpromise, which I used to do because I need a little more experience, it can put you in a tough spot, right? And I really agree with you on the both feet in. I see that a lot when I talk to guys. Like, I'd love to do more Hardie, Corey. And I know one contractor in particular, and every time I shame, he goes, yeah, we just decided that wasn't a main thing for us,
Sure.
And I did. I said, I love this product. I like installing it. It's a challenge, and I'm a production guy, so I love challenges. And so yeah, I think you're 100% right. Both feet in for sure.
Yeah, have hire a team, maybe start with 1 or 2 people to where you're really going to dedicate them to the training, have them talk to us as a distributor. Bounce ideas off of fellow contractors.
Yeah.
You guys are a network as well.
Yeah.
I mean, distribution, we've got competition, but we respect the competition.
Yep.
Same thing with you guys.
Yep.
There's a bunch of people out there that are doing the same thing.
100%. And I talk to most of them.
Right. Yeah, you're friends with a lot of them.
Yeah, I am.
And so, you're constantly communicating and bouncing ideas off each other and saying, hey, this went well, this didn't, and it's all for improving
that's right. Because I don't want to see anybody put on a bad Hardie job.
Yeah.
And I've got a friend, Tom, and Tom feels the same way. It's like, it drives us nuts to know sometimes that there's these contractors out there doing subpar work. And so, Tom and I are both the same way, I think, and we'll take those calls from those contractors. We're willing to help them and give them advice. And I think that there's a common misconception among contractors that other contractors don't want to help each other. I see that a lot in the roofing segment of the business, which is a little more, I think, competitive maybe.
Sure.
But it is. I think you're 100% right. It's just, I think we all really want to build a great community, because if Hardie board's going well, then more customers are going to buy it. But if there's a bunch of people out there not putting up good installs, then there's probably going to be less homeowners that are so excited about seeing their neighbor's house that looks so good.
Ultimately, it's gonna take away from the product, right?
Yeah.
And James Hardie's name.
Yeah.
Or any type of siding, really. But so it's important, and we're there if somebody wants to grow their business and get into that segment. We'll help you do the takeoff on the first couple. We'll connect you with Hardie for training.
Yeah.
If you want some advice from somebody that's more experienced, I know that I can give them your number and you'll be cool with it,
100%.
And say, hey, we'll call them. So there is a network.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think, people get wrapped up in competition, and, everybody's got to get their market share. But in the end, if everybody's, the more you can do it the correct way, it's going to benefit everybody.
Yeah. 100%. And I think Hardie also does a great job of supporting. I was at their Hardie Summit where they brought together all the elite preferred contractors together, not all of them, but they brought, I think it was 200 or 300 of them, and brought them all together and did a seminar recently. And they talked to us in that about how they are here to help us. They're here to support us. They want to bring on more crews. They want to train more crews. You mentioned the labor shortage. And so, they kind of, it's like, I get backed up by you get backed up by them.
Yep.
And ultimately that means our homeowner can feel more confident that we're going to get them the project they want and need and install it properly for them.
Hands down, man, for sure.
So let's go to the other side of it. what do we need to see less from contractors?
Oh gosh, that's a good question.
It was easier to say what we needed, right?
That's a good question.
I think that we've covered a lot about, production, pricing, sales, which are all three different things. And I think that's what, people hire me to do, is to help avoid those problems, right? Those pain points. Right. Like, I don't want to have to go through that pain. And I think what I like to do is try to help contractors, that first job where it's like, they don't want to burn themselves on the hot stove, but we don't want them to burn themselves, but it's just part of it in some sense. But trying to make it so the burn isn't third degree. They don't have to go to the hospital. They can stay in business and things can get better. What advice do you have for people just wanting to sell more Hardie board siding, more James Hardie siding?
I would say don't be afraid of the unknown. You're going to have growing pains. And like you said, you don't want the third degree burn, but you are going to have some burns. But don't be afraid to pick up the phone and use your resources. I guess to go back to that other question of what can contractors do less of? Yeah. Not using your resources fully. You're the distributor, the manufacturer, other contractors. You have all these tools in your bag. And I think that they go out and maybe hire a crew, or they take a regular siding crew or a framing crew and think that they can do it. And that's just not the case. Like, hey man, we'll train your team. We'll get Hardie involved in it. We'll show you how to do a takeoff. We'll connect you with hover representatives to make it easier. There's all these tools that they may not be aware of. Yeah. And if they don't communicate it on the front side of it, how do we know we don't know your experience level, and we're kind of gauging it and guessing at it, but we don't know if you truly will reveal yourself and tell us what you need, and we can connect you with those resources. Yeah,
Matt, I've never let my pride or my ego get in the way of communicating. No, I'm just joking. I think that's exactly my problem sometimes. I think it's like, I'd hate to tell people my weaknesses. And I think in business, it's, been taught where it's like, show your strength, hide your weaknesses. I think a lot of times in this business, you're 100% right. It's like, if you want to get better, then you got to be vulnerable. You got to get out there and you got to say, look, this is something I don't know. I need a better way to do it. And I think that helps a ton.
Yeah. Mistakes are going to happen, but, own it and learn, and you're going to get better.
And that's what I will say, Lansing. I commend Lansing for that. It's like, we all make mistakes, and I do it. I have to eat them with my homeowners, but Lansing, I think, does an amazing job of that and always stands behind everything.
Absolutely.
Really well.
100%.
What's your message to the audience, Matt? What do you want to say to the audience? What's the Matt Reichold, what do we want people to hear from you?
Oh gosh. I just, the job that we do, that you and I do, I understand that your business is your baby, and what we do is difficult at times just because of the high volume, and it's very right now, but it's highly rewarding. And, I truly care about service and taking care of people and making those connections long-term. And I want that to shine through. Yeah. I'm coming from South Bend. I felt like it was a very community-oriented city. Yeah. And moving here, it's a larger city with better amenities, but it still feels small and hometown. And I'm lucky to be able to call Indianapolis, I feel, as a home, and South Bend's a home. Yeah. So when I go back to South Bend, and I'm lucky to say, hey, I'm going home. And then I say the same thing when I'm coming from South Bend to Indianapolis, to say, hey, I'm coming home. And not a lot of people get to say that. But it's because of the people that I've met and I've known, and I live in the community, and I want to invest in it, and raising my daughter in this community. Yeah. And so, what we're doing every day is kind of just a microcosm of how I want to raise my daughter, the friendships of the people that I have. Yeah. And I want that to shine through. So yeah, there are some difficulties, and it's tough at times, but it's highly rewarding. And I just, I want people to know that, hey, we're here to help. No matter what it is, we can get you into the business. We can connect you. It's, it doesn't really matter what we're selling, to be honest with you.
That's right.
It's just, are you doing stuff the right way? Do you do what you say you're going to do? And I expect that level of service when I go out to eat, when I go to somewhere else. That's my expectation, because that's the level of service that I want to give I feel like maybe the bar's been lowered for whatever reason in just
in society or our culture.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like a grumpy old grizzled man, which I am, but we're not going to lower our standard. You shouldn't lower your standard. If I'm a homeowner, I'm not lowering my standard. I want to get what I expect to get.
Yeah.
And I think that should shine through in business as well.
Yeah.
So
I think you do a great job of that, Matt.
Yeah,
I really do.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Is there anything you want to promote? Any products, your team, your company, anything you want to promote?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity, the invite to, have a discussion with you, but it's awesome to be able to talk about Lansing and the experience I've had as a company. It is a family-owned company, and it's the third generation. And you mentioned Hunter Lansing. He is an awesome guy. The entire Lansing family are great people. There's no hubris in him whatsoever. And he's a good steward of the business. And he gives back to the community. And I think that's all trickled down, and that resonates with me. Yeah. And I hopefully, resonates with our team and to our customers. But Lansing Building Products in Indianapolis is in the gutter business, and
yeah, they are. Yeah,
we've got a full line of mastic gutter coil.
Yeah,
and it's an exact match for those mastic colors. So if you have classic cream siding, we can get you classic cream gutter coil. You're not picking the closest match. It's a 20-year warranty, including labor, which is unparalleled in the market. And we want to do a good job. We live in Indianapolis. I think. Gutter is similar to a pit crew for the Indy 500. You've got to be accurate, you've got to be fast, and you've got to do a good job. So, if that's one thing that we've been selling windows and doors for quite some time, we know exactly what we're doing. Every step in the siding process, our team knows from when we take the order to sell it to when we're pulling that order, delivering it to the job site to picking it up. I think we're the best in the business at that.
Yeah.
But if there's one thing that I would like to sell a little bit more of, it'd be gutter.
Yeah. So come here, get your gutter coil from Matt, and he'll make sure you're happy. I can tell you.
Absolutely.
So I want to finish with something fun.
Mm-hmm.
And these are just going to be a little more general. Well, what are 3 things that somebody needs to be successful?
I think integrity, number 1. Yeah. Do the right thing even when nobody's looking. You've got to have integrity. Yeah. Even your company name has honesty and quality in it.
Yeah.
So that's part of integrity. You've got to have a motor. You've got to be dedicated and service oriented. To be successful, you have to take into perspective, everybody's perspective. See the big picture, I think.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easy to get into the minute details, and sometimes you've got to kind of look over the trees and see what you've done well and what you've done wrong and make an adjustment. Yeah. So you've got to be adaptable.
Yeah. And that's sometimes the hardest thing is to look at yourself objectively and go,
right.
I didn't do so well there. I think that's one of the hardest things for me to do.
Right. And it's, and if you kind of trickle it down, and it can be overwhelming when you think of all those things. Yeah. So you've got to pick and choose certain things at that moment and work on them. And like you said, what do you need to do better? What can we do better here? And coach towards improvement. And that's, the first thing to do is look in the mirror and look at yourself and communicate and ask for that feedback. Like, Corey, what are we doing good, man? What do we need to improve on? And then we can go and fix those things.
Yeah.
So, integrity, adaptability, and then you've got to be able to communicate well and develop relationships.
Yeah.
Because ultimately that's what it's all about.
It's huge. That's probably the biggest. Yeah, that's huge. Cool. Matt, I really appreciate you taking the time.
Man, I appreciate you guys and your team, and it's been fun doing this. It's my first podcast, so
yeah,
it's a good time. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, we got Steve behind the camera back there. He always makes me look good, so he'll make sure to make you look good. And this is great. Appreciate you taking the time. We just want to get more conversations started with contractors. And, really it's focused around contractor financial freedom, because I think that's what most contractors want. We all want to have financial freedom, whether you're a contractor or not, but especially this is focused on contractors.
Yep.
And I think that you have a lot of insight, a lot of experience. I know you know a lot of contractors that have become successful through this business, and some guys who maybe have not, and they've struggled with challenges. And I think that's the key here, is just like you said, communication, networking.
Yes.
And the more that we can do that in this industry, the more of a chance we have to professionalize the industry.
Yep.
And really raise that standard.
Great.
Which I feel like over the years, maybe it slips from time to time, but I think it's our responsibility to kind of bring that standard back up.
Absolutely. And it's a great opportunity for a young kid that's coming out of high school. There's a ton of opportunity to get into this business.
Yeah.
I mean, with the technology changing the way it is, it's going to eliminate certain jobs. But it's going to take a person to put in siding, install windows, gutter, roofing. There's a ton of opportunity. And I think there's been a stigma, over the last couple of years of going out and working in the construction industry or doing a trade. And I don't know why that is. Yeah. If we could provide the proper training and there's somebody that has the want to, you can make a really, really good living, and you can pretty much command the way you want to do it.
Yeah.
But it's going to take an education. It's going to take swinging a hammer and learning that stuff first, like you said, on the production side.
Right.
But then talking to people like you to learn the business side of things.
Yep.
And, I think if you give somebody the tools and you let them know that this is the potential opportunity that you have in front of you, I think then that labor shortage we're talking about is going to, decrease, and we're actually going to get some people back into the trades.
Yep.
That can actually physically give back to the community. It's not all about being in a cubicle all the time. Those jobs are necessary as well. But as has been in the news lately, there's on incoming technology that's going to shrink some of those jobs.
Yeah.
But you can't shrink this.
That's right. This is, I think one day they'll probably try to get some robots involved to install siding. I think it'll be very challenging for those robots. But I look forward to that day. If I could hire some robot installers, I'd hire them. But I think technology has been affecting our industry a great deal. Nowadays I don't really write many emails without AI.
Yeah.
I think almost all my emails now, I take those and I put them into Chat GPT.
Sure.
And then it makes me look more professional. And I just see it. It's just, even the vehicles we drive, it's like the vehicles are kind of starting to drive themselves, and, I just look forward to that innovation. It can be kind of scary. I think it can be really scary. 'Cause it's like, I heard this sentiment one time from some other contractors that were like, I used to drive around without GPS and I knew how to get everywhere.
Yeah.
And now I don't know how to get anywhere because I use GPS all the time.
Yep.
And the question I have for them is, well, do you want to have to remember how to get everywhere, or would you like that part of your brain to be able to do something that helps you grow or helps your company grow?
Yeah, exactly. Well, like you said, in your vehicle, it's kind of like a think tank. When you're going from point A to point B, it allows you to think of things in the vehicle. I'm the same way. Yeah. If I'm just thinking in silence, maybe listening to music or listening to a podcast. Yep. Or, something that's going to be beneficial. But you're absolutely right. And to your point of, not having to think about driving, like we don't have to go back to MapQuest,
Yeah. I know this sounds crazy, but I'm waiting until they come out with these drones and I can just get in my drone and I can fly to my job sites or fly to my office or fly to Lansing. And I don't have to do anything, and I can actually work while I'm in there. I do look forward to those days. I don't know how realistic they are. It seems a little dangerous.
Yeah, hopefully that's a ways down the road, man. And when those robots are flying around, you and I will be sitting on the porch sharing a beer.
I hope so. So, All right. Well, I guess I'm having fun. We could just keep talking.
I know, right? Yeah.
But,
you got to condense all this, Steve?
Yeah. No, you can go as long as you want. We can go 3 hours, right?
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, you hear some funny stories. I mean, 17 years in the business, you hear some really funny stories, and you know.
You got any good ones you want to share?
Gosh,
we got time. We got 3 hours.
I think so. I've met a lot of good contractors over the years. But I've seen some funny ones where, you know, I went to a job site once and they said the window sash wouldn't stay up. Well, come to find out, they installed a slider window side to side as a double hung, of course, and the sash was just slamming down. The best one I think I've heard involved a box truck and a poor unfortunate person and a can of spray foam. Had it up on the dash, and the driver it was a contractor, must have taken a sharp turn and it just hit right. And this spray foam took off like a bottle rocket.
I've heard this story.
And was all over in the cab, filled up the cab. The guy had glasses. He parked the box truck at his place of business, left the keys, and went home to never return, which I really think is the only play at that point. So
this may not be the job for you.
I wouldn't want to be there to walk in the door when you know, and your wife have to ask you what happened, but you know, that was a good one.
Yeah, what do you got to like shave your head? That stuff.
You're not putting that on a resume.
Oh man. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. That's a pretty good one.
But yeah, man, it's been a good ride, and we're going to hopefully continue to do it for a long time, and we'll see where it takes us.
Yeah, I don't know anything better to do at this point. So
yeah,
I'm just gonna keep doing what I do.
Yeah, right.
You know, and you guys have helped us build such a great business that it's like, I can't imagine doing anything else at this point. I really enjoy what I do for a living.
Yeah, right.
The more people I can help, I think the better.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
So,
well, certainly appreciate you and everything that we've done over the years, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Corey.
Yep.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.